A Christmas Carol, Part 1. Marley was dead. To begin with, there is no doubt whatever about that. The register of this bureau was signed by the juryman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chef mourner. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole registry legate, his sole friend and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event, but that he was an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and solemnized with an undoubted bargain. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There's no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I am going to relate. Scott never planted out old Marley's name. There stood, years afterward, above the warehouse door, Scott and Marley. The firm was known as Scott and Marley. Sometimes people knew to the business called Scott, and sometimes Marley, but he answers to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fit hand at the grindstone, Scott. A squeezing, wrenching, gapping, scrapping, clutching, covetous old shiner, hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel has ever struck out, generous, fire, secret, and self-contained, and so solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old feathers, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his jack, stiffened his gait, it made his eyes red, his thin lips full, and spoke out shrewdly in his gathering voice. A frosty rime on his head and on his eyebrows. And his weary chin, he carried his own low temperature away about with him. He asked his office in the dark days, and even thought what degree at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him, no wind that blew was bitterer than him. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose, no pelting rain less often entreaty. For fall weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain and snow and hail and the street could boast of advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say with glad summer looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars imposed him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind man's dog appeared to show him, and when they saw him coming on, would tuck their owners into the doorway and up court. Then they would wag their tails. I thought they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye, dark master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all humans simply to keep his distance. Was what he knowing once called nuts to Scrooge. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather. He could hear the people in the crowd outside go whizzing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, and stamping their feet upon the pavement. Stones swarmed them. The city clock had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been like our day. Candles were failing in the windows of the neighboring office, like ready smeared upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in at every chin and keyhole, and was also dense without, that although the court was of narrowest, the house opposite were mere phantoms on the deadly clouds of dropping down, obscuring everything. One might have thought that nature lived hard by, and was breathing on the large scale. The door of Scott's counting house was opened that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who was in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters. Scott had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was also very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he didn't respectfully lit it, for Scott kept the coal box in his own room. So surely as the clerk came in with a shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Therefore, the clerk put on his white comforter and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which, for not being a man of a strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scott's nephew, who came up to him so quickly that it was the first intimation he had on his approach. "Bah!" said Scott, "humbug!" He had so hidden himself in a rubbing, walking in the fog and frost. His nephew was Scott that he was in all glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoke again. "Christmas a humbug, Uncle," said Scott's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure." "I do," said Scott. "Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew.